Hey friends, grace to you and peace from God our Father and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. My name is Tim Wright. I'm one of the pastors here at Community Grace Lutheran Church, coming to you from our campus in Peoria, Arizona. So good to have you with us today. This is the first weekend after Easter, but that doesn't mean we're done talking about Easter, because the Easter story is one that keeps us motivated, and that's what we're all about here. Now, for those of you who were born, let's say, after 1991, let me introduce you to this. This is a record. And on the record, actually this is the album cover, but on the record is music. And this is the way that old people like me used to listen to music. Now, this particular album is quite rare. It's a limited release. It came out in 1979. And Diane's going to put the cover up for you so you can see it a little better. You may recognize a few celebrities on that album. Somebody, for example, sitting on the track happens to be me. And my wife Jan is in that picture. My brother Jeff, who's on our staff, and some other folks. So this is an album we recorded back in 1979. And again, this is a way that old people listen to music. Now, technically, this is called a 33 LP, which means when you put this on a turntable, it will rotate 33 times per minute, and it's an LP because it's a long play. You're able to put several songs onto each side of the record. Now, when I was a kid, we had a stereo system that looked something like this, and we would put the record on it, and we would play it. When I was a young married person, I had a stereo system that looked something like this. And to this day, I am kicking myself because I didn't keep it. Now, there were a lot of wonderful things about records, but part of the thing about albums is that they were very tactile. You didn't just listen to the music, you had a whole experience. So albums came wrapped. You can maybe see a little bit of shining. This is still wrapped in the cellophane. And so when you would get a new album, you would unwrap it, and then you would have the album cover, and depending on the album cover, in this one by my friend B.J. Thomas, it actually opened up. Had some great pictures. It had liner notes that would tell the stories of the songs, and so you could read that. You could read who all the artists were. And then you'd also have the lyrics, and then you would pull the album out. It would be in its sleeve, and you would very carefully just lift it out of the sleeve by the edge because you didn't want to get your fingers all over it, and you would handle it very carefully. I can't get it out of the sleeve because it had some water damage. So you pull it out like this, and then you would hold it, and you would put it down onto the turntable like that. And then once it's on the turntable, you pick up the arm with the needle on it, you move it over, you put it onto the record, there's this little, and then suddenly the room fills with music. And so it's a whole tactile experience from opening up the album, reading it, feeling the cover, putting it on the turntable, moving the needle over. Albums were great, but they had a couple drawbacks. Number one, the issue was, well, where do you put them all? And some of us back in the day had to knock out several walls and build several new rooms just to store all of our record albums. The other problem with record albums is you couldn't play them in the car. So you were really at the mercy of your favorite radio station, which maybe wasn't all that bad. But you had to listen through all those commercials. You had to listen to all those songs and artists that you didn't like just to hear the songs that you did like. That changed with the coming of the 8-track and then the cassette tape. Now, 8-tracks didn't last very long, but cassette tapes did. And here was the wonder and beauty of cassette tapes. You could put up to 2 hours of music onto a cassette tape. So you would just tape all of your favorite albums onto this cassette tape, and you could take it anywhere. Cars had cassette tape players in them. You had the Walkmans. You had your boom boxes. You could take those cassettes anywhere. And that was a real advancement in terms of recorded music. Then, of course, we came to the CD players, and CDs were like mini albums. Again, somewhat tactile. And then Apple came along, and we had iPods, and you could take a whole library of music with you. But the big move in recorded music came back in the early 2000s with streaming music. And it was Spotify that really put this on the map. And now, with the right music app, you can have access almost to any recorded music on the planet. And with the right subscription, you have access to this all the time. And so I have an Amazon Music app, and when I get into my car, because of Bluetooth, I'm able to connect my phone and that app to the car, and I have access to the entire library of Taylor Swift music. And it's true, I'm announcing it publicly, I've become a Swifter. I've joined the army of the Swifters. I'm a 66-year-old man, but I want to stay hip and groovy for the now generation, so I've become a Swifter just to keep up to speed. So here's the beauty of streaming music and subscriptions. You have a whole world of music available to you. But here's the downside. We've lost the tactile. We don't really get to engage with that album cover. We don't get to move the needle over. We just press a button and the music is there. And so it shouldn't be surprising to learn that record albums, vinyl, are making a comeback. Jan and I first noticed this in some of the TV shows that we were watching. We would see certain characters in these TV shows, younger than we are, with stereo systems and turntables playing albums or visiting a vinyl store. Of course, trendsetters are seeing it as well. Record sales of albums, vinyl, went up 11% just last year alone. And so there's something happening out there in the world when it comes to records. Now, some people suggest that this newfangled nostalgia for records is being generated by old people like me. And so we're pulling out all of our old albums and we're listening to them on turntables. The problem is many of us don't have turntables anymore. Some think that younger people are discovering that albums are much richer, far more tactile, a deeper experience than any other kind of music. But I'd like to suggest that there's something else behind this nostalgia for vinyl and for records. I think that our rediscovery of vinyl is a symptom, living a virtual world, of our longing for something human and authentic and tangible. I saw this just a couple weeks ago. Our granddaughter, Clover, had one of the lead roles in Liberty High School's musical. They did We Will Rock You, which is based on the music of Queen. And essentially the play is a satire. It begins by poking fun at American Idol and the American idolization of music, how it's become overly produced, overly slick, almost to the point that it's removed all the human from it. And then it pokes fun at how we live in screens all the time, and it pokes fun at our thousands of friends but no human connections. And so in the end, it's really a play about reconnecting with the authentic, with the human, with the tangible, with the tactile. And it uses the music of Queen as the metaphor. And so something is happening here with this nostalgia over record albums, and I think it's a symptom of our longing for something real. And I think in some ways, if we're paying attention, part of what this nostalgia for records is doing is it's exposing the underbelly of the virtual world. You see, the more virtual the world becomes, the more removed we become from reality. And there are all kinds of downsides to that. We know, for example, that our children, our sons and daughters, are far more depressed and anxious than they've ever been, and there's a connection to their depression and anxiety and a virtual world. The virtual world has unleashed a hell pit of racism and anti-Semitism and hate. It's allowed unchecked and unfiltered untruths to be perpetuated, leading to a swamp of conspiracy theories. You see, one of the challenges of a virtual world is nothing is real, and when nothing is real, everything becomes real. Our good friend B.J. Thomas once had a line in one of his songs, on a vinyl album, by the way. It says, "It's easier to sell a lie than to give the truth away." And that's really true of the virtual world. You see, the more virtual the world, the more removed we are from reality. The more removed we are from reality, the less human we become. And it goes counter to how we've been created. We as human beings are created for touch. We're created for the tactile. We're created for authenticity. We're created for something that's real. And that's why I think the Christian story is not only still relevant 2,000 years later, it's more relevant than ever before. Because the Christian story is about the creator of the universe becoming tangible, becoming human, becoming tactile. It's about our Creator entering into human history in a way that God can be touched and seen and experienced. It's the story of a God who can bleed and die. It's the story of reality, the way, the truth, and the life taking on human form so that we can touch it and see it and experience it. It's the story of God becoming flesh to remove the fog of the virtual, to root us once again in truth. And that truth is summarized with the word grace. So, as the world becomes more virtual, the story of Christianity becomes increasingly important. This story of Jesus who comes to us in a way that he can be touched and experienced, in a way that reality can be tangible and it can be tactile. So we not only hear it, we can experience it in every part of our being. And in just a few moments, you're going to have the opportunity to experience this story in a way that is tactile and tangible as Jesus comes to you through the meal of communion. A meal where Jesus uses the stuff of wine and grape juice, the stuff of bread, to come to you and to convey to you that you are loved, that you matter, that God is for you. And so in just a few moments, you're going to be invited to this tactile experience of grace where Jesus comes to you to rehumanize you with his love.